Well, good afternoon. We're going to give individuals a few more minutes to join us here within the webinar. Very excited to be able to offer this today. We're just going to be give us 1 or 2 minutes and we'll get started.
Jackie. Pardon?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're 3 minutes past the hour, and we're really excited to welcome everyone to the Workforce webinars. Our first session is what is work-based learning and how does it work? Just a quick introduction. My name is Jane Bangs-Frisch. I'm the Vice President of Workforce for the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo Chamber. In collaboration with the NDSU Farms National Science Foundation Initiative, we are able to produce this webinar in collaboration with Patrick at Golden Path Solutions, and he'll be our MC for today. Just wanted to welcome everyone. There will be some things at the end that I wanted to just let you know that we're going to be asking for your feedback. But before we get started, just a few notes. This webinar is being recorded. Please, we encourage you to ask questions, any questions in the chat. Links will also be shared throughout the presentation in the chat. And then, as I mentioned, there will be a resource guide at the end. And then we just really would appreciate your feedback at the end related to the webinar. So I'm going to turn it over to Patrick, who will serve as kind of our MC and host today. We have a big lineup of presenters, and we know others will be joining us throughout the presentation. And we're just really appreciative that you're here today to learn more about work-based learning. Patrick?
Hey, everybody. Nice to see you. My name is Patrick Binier, and I'm again the CEO and founder of Golden Path Solutions. And we have the privilege of working with Jane and Heidi at the Chamber, and then all the people that you see on this slide. And so real quick, just to introduce everybody, we're going to have Dawn Ulmer and Mary Berg representing North Dakota and Minnesota work-based learning programs. Dawn is actually on the National ACTE Work-Based Learning Division group on the policy committee, so she's got a lot of experience on what's happening across the entire country. We'll have Becky Bay with NDSU Career Services. Art Thompson with WSI will answer insurance questions. We have Denise Jonas and Lana Feely with the Cass County and Fargo School District talking about what's happening locally. And finally, Jackie Gately will be sharing information about ways to help pay for work-based learning through North Dakota Job Service. So they will all be presenting to you if we follow the agenda. Next slide, Heidi. The agenda that we're going to follow is basically starting off with a very high-level definition of what is work-based learning. What does it mean? You've probably heard the term, but what does it actually entail? We're going to talk about work-based learning opportunities for both North Dakota and Minnesota, how the different states look at work-based learning. We'll talk about how you actually publish work-based learning opportunities for high school and college students, how to pay for work-based learning. Like I mentioned, Jackie from North Dakota Job Service will be talking about WIOA and other programs. We'll talk about insurance considerations, especially for students that are under 18, including paid versus unpaid positions and how that works. And then finally, set some expectations both for you as employers when you're thinking about work-based learning, but also what to expect from students. Like Jane said, we will be taking questions throughout, so please put those in the chat. And then if we have time at the end, we will go through those questions. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dawn Ulmer, who's going to talk about work-based learning and how it works in North Dakota. Dawn? Whoop, Dawn, you might be on mute.
Thank you so much, Patrick. I really appreciate the opportunity to take time and talk about work-based learning because it is such an important part of our educational system. As you know, work-based learning is a partnership between the school, the student, and the employers. We have training grade agreements in place so that everybody understands what the expectations are for work-based learning. This gives students real world experience. They get to work in an authentic workplace situation with professionals in the career area that they are interested in. There are different ways to do work-based learning, and you may have seen or heard about these different options. Work-based learning, which is tied to a program or to a program area of CTE, and then there's what we call workplace learning. Work-based learning through CTE means that the student that gets involved in this program is going to already have some CTE experience. They will have developed skills, they have shown an interest in the career, and they are prepared to be an asset in the workplace. Workplace learning is often something that occurs when a student has a summer job or after school job, and they have a way through their public school system to get credit for that job. It isn't tied to a CTE program area or program of study. So those are two terms that will become very familiar to you in the future. There's differences in work-based learning across districts and states, including systems, processes, and sometimes who is allowed to take part in it, what they have to do to get involved. But our job is to try to provide as much consistency as possible. As Patrick mentioned, I do work on the ACTE National Work-Based Learning Division Policy Committee. So we have the opportunity not only to influence policy for work-based learning across the country, but bring home some of the newest ideas to our state as well. You will see the website for the National Policy Committee link, and I would just encourage you to check that out and find out what is involved with that. As we move on, and you will see by visiting the National Work-Based Learning Policy Committee site, that this is not just a small program. This is something that is across our entire country, and all states are doing it at different levels. I started here in North Dakota in 2021, and we decided to establish some goals for our work-based learning program with you in mind. One of those goals is to fill the demand for trained workforce in North Dakota. We want to make sure that you are benefiting from this program. We want to retain our talented young people and prepare students to be successful in the workplace. Work-based learning also provides a way to bridge the gap between education and the labor market. And we all know it is very engaging for students to be involved in a work-based learning experience. We want to create a career mindset for our students and help them establish career goals. One of the last goals, but one of the most important, is to collaborate with educators and expand educational opportunities where our educators can work together and work with industry to make more relevant educational opportunities. So in North Dakota, If you were going to start the work-based learning, and you could go to the next slide, please. In North Dakota, if you were going to start work-based learning, you may want to connect with a work-based learning coordinator. There's going to be different options for you to get involved. You can participate in a sustained work experience, which means students have a semester-long cooperative work experience with a minimum of 40 hours in conjunction with the CTE coursework. So that means a student may be involved, for example, in a healthcare class. And through this health occupations class, they have prepared themselves for a healthcare work-based learning experience. So there's a minimum of 40 hours of work experience. You may see students that are going to have more required of them, maybe 75 hours. Those are things that can be collaborated on and discussed with your work-based learning coordinator or another educator in the system. Simulated work experiences are things like a carpentry class where students are working in carpentry, and then as part of that experience, they're also building a house. So this would be considered a simulated work experience. You will also see other types of work-based learning, like service learning, which is volunteer work, work in the community, registered apprenticeships. This is something North Dakota will be expanding in the future. And capstone projects, which could be something like a project-based learning, where an employer has a project they've been waiting to do and connect with the educational system and find a student who can work on this in a capstone project simulation. So these are just some of the ways that you can get involved. You can visit our site. There we have an employer toolkit. We do employer trainings as well, and we would love to spend more time with you to help you understand how you can be involved in this wonderful program.
Thank you so much, Dawn, for sharing a little bit about that. And in those URLs, there's a lot of information for employers, some forms, some different guidelines. And if you have any questions on that, we'll provide Dawn's contact information and everybody else's contact information after the meeting. Now shifting over to Minnesota. So Mary Berg is the basically the education coordinator for work-based learning for the state of North Dakota, or of Minnesota. She's part of the Department of Education. She is unfortunately at a conference in Arizona. So she sent us a video that she's going to share with us. So Heidi, if you could play the video, that would be awesome.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here today. My name is Mary Berg, and I serve as Minnesota's Work-Based Learning Education Specialist. While I'm sorry I'm not able to join you live, I appreciate the chance to connect with you through this recording and share a few key messages about work-based learning in Minnesota. As the Work-Based Learning Specialist, I am dedicated to fostering strong relationships with work-based learning coordinators, CTE leaders, and external partners to ensure that students have the opportunity to engage in meaningful, real-world experiences that prepare them for future careers. My top priority is to support and provide leadership to school districts across the state through program development and continuous improvement of high-quality work-based learning programs. I'm committed to ensuring that every student in the state has access to work-based learning opportunities that are student-centered and aligned with their individual career goals. To support this effort, our agency provides resources to support work-based learning programs, which are located on our website. Let's check it out. On our website, you will find several expandable menus by scrolling down on our work-based learning page. Let's start with the Work-Based Learning Program Development menu. When you click on that expandable menu, you will find many resources. One of the key tools available is the Work-Based Learning Handbook. The handbook is a comprehensive guide for those who are developing or implementing work-based learning programs within school districts and charter schools in Minnesota. By applying the information within our handbook, you can create and sustain a high-quality work-based learning program that provides safe and engaging experiences for all students. In addition to the handbook, we've made available sample forms. Let's check those out. A few of the sample forms that we have available include training agreements, training plan, student performance evaluation, and checklists for worksite selections and work experiences. All of these resources are designed to make it easier for schools and employers to work together effectively. They're especially helpful for those who may be new to work-based learning or are looking to improve current practices. I want to thank you for being part of this important work. Your involvement makes a real difference for students across Minnesota and beyond. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or if you'd like to set up a time to continue the conversation. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, if I see that there's a Mary that joined.
Hello, everyone, and thank
the
you for
link.
being here today.
Heidi,
My
if you
name
can go
is
to the
Mary
next
Berg.
slide. Mary, if that's you, thank you for sending that video. And otherwise, it was great to have Mary on board. And we look forward to getting to know her and creating more consistency, especially with the employers that are working in both states. So I'm going to talk for a few minutes about how to connect with high school students, which is basically kind of the area of focus for Golden Path Solutions and for the work that we're doing with both the state of North Dakota and then schools in Minnesota. So for those of you that haven't done this yet, the very first step to get connected with high school students is to create an account in Compass. Basically, you have the URL there. It takes just a couple minutes to create your account, and it's free. And once you are in, the very first thing that we always tell employers to do is join what we call the Connections Database. The Connections Database is essentially your way of indicating to schools what things you're willing to offer them, and also what schools you want to share your contact information with. You can see an example of that on the right side of the screen. In this case, the employer has said that they're willing to do career fairs, virtual career fairs, guest speaking, and field trips. And then they've chosen to share their contact information with all schools, which means any school that's using Compass, which does include schools both in Minnesota and North Dakota, would have contact information and be able to contact you as an employer. Further down the list, there would be work-based learning experiences like internships or co-ops that you can say, I'm interested in offering them if the right student is interested. If you can go to the next slide, Heidi. This is where you essentially enter the detail of a work-based learning experience that you want to provide. So if you are willing to offer an internship, a summer job, a cooperative work experience, whatever it is, you basically in your account create a work-based learning opportunity. And you basically put in an overview of the opportunity. You can put in any pictures or links to the opportunity that would help students understand what it is you're doing. Any requirements that you might have. Some employers want students that have had maybe a certain class, or maybe there's an age requirement or a grade requirement. You can put all those things in. We encourage you to put in as much information as possible so that the student knows who you are and what you're doing, and also is able to see if this is the right fit for them. The next thing you do is you choose the schools to share it with. We usually recommend with work-based learning that you keep it restricted to schools that are within a physical proximity of whatever your location is. And that's usually because work-based learning does involve some kind of physical connection. Maybe the student going to your facilities or maybe a face-to-face interaction. Best practice is if you're a company that has multiple locations across the state, for example, a General Equipment or maybe another equipment dealer, you could create multiple work-based learning opportunities for wherever your dealerships are located, and then share that opportunity with schools in a 30-mile radius, for example, of that opportunity, of that location. The other thing is to put in important dates. So the application period is, we call it the published start and end date, but when can students see the opportunity and when can they apply? And then finally, when do you actually see the opportunity starting and ending? Sometimes this can be an estimate. We have had some companies that just put an end date, 3 or 4 years out, because they always want this opportunity to be available, and they will accommodate schedules when a student applies. There are help guides and everything for you to walk through within Compass if you have any questions on that. The final part of the process is that you will receive applications and be asked to do evaluations. Applications from students will start to arrive. The timing will depend on the school, and Lana will be covering that later in this presentation. But every school has different rhythms of when they're offering work-based learning. And so you may get applications just kind of over time, you may get a bunch of applications all at once, especially if students are registering as part of a class. One tip we have for you, please respond quickly to applications. Sometimes what happens is if an application gets missed, the student might move on to another opportunity or actually might not think that you're interested. And so we ask employers, you'll get reminders from us over email to make sure that those applications are either offered or rejected. You can also, in some cases, talk to the student before you make an offer so you can see if it's the right fit. After the experience, the schools will ask for feedback. This is super important, especially in North Dakota, because there are measurements made around how a student did that are used to help understand if the student is eligible for credit. So please fill out those evaluations too if you get a chance. Just a couple considerations that I wanted to share with you before I turn it over to Becky. So programs at the schools can be different based on schedules and the maturity of the program. We're very lucky in Fargo and West Fargo because we have Lana that is looking after these programs, and there's a team of people within the schools that manage this. But some of the more rural schools may not have dedicated resources. There are guides to who are basically licensed for work-based learning that you can see in the link below on the same page that Dawn had mentioned at the beginning. So if you ever have questions about what to expect, feel free to go to that guide, find the local work-based learning coordinator and reach out to them, or you can reach out to us, to Dawn, or to Jane and Heidi at the chamber, and they'll be able to point you in the right direction. The other thing that I would sometimes recommend is that be open to different skills and talents. As part of the application process, you will receive kind of an overview of what the skills are that the student has, maybe what are their classes, activities, their hobbies that make them a good fit for this. But we do want work-based learning to be something that the student gets exposed to new things too. So part of your goal as an employer is exposing students to these opportunities, helping them get excited about something that maybe they didn't even know existed. So with that, I'm now going to turn it over to Becky. Becky is the Director of Career Services for NDSU, and she's going to talk to you about a similar process that you can use to connect with college students. So Becky, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, so similar with college students. So, and I would say we have similar, work-based learning where they're getting credit for it or could, but also workplace where maybe they're not getting credit for it. But most times students are thinking about how do I connect to where my area of study is. So we often use the terms experiential learning is a pretty broad umbrella term for us. And that can also include internships, co-ops, service learning with that. But I think just knowing that with our post-secondary students, that they definitely are committed individuals that are looking to receive experience. We often have students coming in as a first-year student that are excited about the potential of being able to get some sort of experiential learning even their first summer after college. So to know that, and to know that they're often available for more than 1 year. And then it allows for these opportunities for kind of a continuous pipeline of talent. We have many industry partners that have found their students that are coming in for these experiences often stay for that first full-time position. And so that's a great opportunity. And then also that these experiences can allow to assist in a lot of that training to happen during their heavy learning stages. So then when they really are coming in as a full-time employee, it allows for a stronger early talent start. So we know that sometimes the concern about hiring early talent is what it takes to get them up and running. But if you bring them in these guided approaches, it really helps them along. So how does this work in our post-secondary area? We'll go to the next slide. We're pretty fortunate within our region, and actually I could include a lot more universities in our state and even into Minnesota as well that use what's called Handshake. And so this is a system that we use and we manage our work-based learning out of there, but it actually is anything from part-time to full-time employment. Setting up an account is free, and there is a paid account, but if you get into a place where it's asking you to pay for something, we can connect and help you to get the free account because you can do a lot of things with it. Within our local area, we have Concordia, MSU Moorhead, M-State, NDSCS, and NDSU all use it, and then many more. So like I say, I could list most in the state of North Dakota and many in Minnesota that use this. And the reason that that's important is once you get your account on Handshake and you're approved, it allows you to connect with a bunch of institutions all at once. So when it comes time to post a position, you can share it just much more efficiently. So I know that your time is valuable, and this is a great way to do that. So we'll go to the next slide here. So how do you get to that? This link here that Jane is going to put in the chat for me will take you to the overarching Handshake link. So this isn't tied to any specific institution. And when you get on that page in the upper right hand, there's going to be a button that says post a job for free. And then it's going to take you to what you see on the bottom part of the screen that says sign up for free. And so you create your account and there is a verification process. That's the other reason that institutions really like this is we know that there actually is a lot of scamming that happens in employment and on these different job boards. And so everything is verified not only by Handshake, but also by the institutions themselves. So a really important component, particularly for our students who are going through this process. But you connect with as many institutions as you would like, and then you can start also submitting postings. And this is the primary location that students are looking for these experiences. It streamlines it for them as well. It also will get you tied into each institution's kind of what else is happening in their career services. So for example, if you connect with NDSU, if you want to hear about our career fairs, you're going to get communication about that as well by being a member of Handshake. So it's just a really nice tool to get as much access as possible. So I think that's all I have. So I'll turn it back over to Patrick.
Yeah, thanks, Becky. And obviously we have Becky from NDSU talking about this, but like Becky said, MSUM, Concordia, NDSCS, a lot of UND use this tool. So if you're in the region and you want to talk to any people from those specific institutions, please let us know when we can make the connections. And one of the things that we're thinking about is how do we make it easier for employers? Is there a way for us to share some of what you're maybe sharing with high school students, with college students? That's something that we're excited to continue work on and maybe even work with Handshake on. So I want to make one quick comment before I turn it over to Jackie with Job Service. There was an issue with the link. So a lot of you that have joined maybe through the presentation having already started, there will be a recording of this. So you can go back and watch the stuff that maybe you didn't get a chance to see. And we are also taking questions in the chat. So if you do have any questions, please put those in. And if we have time at the end, we will address those questions. But there will be a recording that gets sent out. So with that, I want to now introduce you to Jackie Gately, who is the Workforce Programs Lead for the North Dakota Job Service Fargo, or maybe Cass County office. I'll let Jackie confirm that. Jackie works on different ways that employers can help pay for work-based learning, particularly with certain populations. So Jackie, I'll turn it over to you. Jackie, you might be on mute.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Patrick. And just to clarify, yes, I am the WIOA team lead for Fargo, Jamestown, and Wahpeton area. So I'm happy to share some information about financial resources. I'll be referring to WIOA to shorten up that Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. So all job service offices get this funding. We receive funding in 3 different pots, youth, adult, and dislocated worker. Most of the work-based learning that we do is done with youth ages 16 through 24. We are out of adult funding at this time. We receive 2 allocations per year and won't have another one until October. So right now, mainly working with individuals ages 16 through 24, juniors and seniors in high school and older. I put down some of the eligibility criteria here. It may be one of these things, it may be a combination of these things. This list is not all inclusive. It's really best if we have a candidate that we chat with that person. If we have a short conversation, we can usually find out, is it likely this person would be eligible for the program? We just don't want anybody to screen themselves out. We like to talk to people about eligibility. So the WIOA program, work-based learning, is really driven by the participant, what they're interested in, what they want. We look at services for individuals still in high school, those who want a direct path to employment after high school, those who maybe have completed or are currently in a post-secondary program. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Paid work experience is really like a tryout program, kind of a tryout for the employer and a tryout for the individual. In some cases, it's a way to learn some soft skills and work readiness components for individuals with very little work experience, or it can be of an exploratory nature or directly connected to some type of training, or a combination of all of those things. Paid work experience where the individual is on the job service payroll, job service pays for everything, that is limited to 25 hours a week. We've had questions, well, could an employer put the individual on their payroll for additional hours? No, that is not allowed. Again, it's just a great kind of a no-risk way for both parties to check a position out and see if it might be the right fit. Okay. And we can go on to the next slide. On the job training is a little bit different in that generally the outlook is that this is going to be a longer term position. Generally entry level, people may have some experience, but in this activity, individuals are paid by the employer just like every other employee, and hours are submitted every month, and the employer receives reimbursement of up to 50% for up to 60 months. Employer is responsible for all payroll taxes, workforce safety, and insurance coverage. And again, at the end of the 6-month period, if everything is successful and all parties are happy with the situation, it's expected then that the person would stay on. We can't do either work experience or OJT to replace any individuals that have been laid off due to a lack of work. So that is a question that we'll usually ask. Okay. Time frame. Well, actually, I guess as far as how you would get connected with the WIOA program for potential financial assistance. We do have individuals that we work with that come through our doors, and we do an assessment, we identify their needs, their interests, and then we really do job development on a one-on-one basis as far as the person's needs go. The other thing that can happen is if an employer has a candidate and would like to know if maybe this person would qualify for some of the funding incentives, or if the employer would qualify, a simple phone call to one of the WIOA team members in the job service office to get us connected with the potential candidate. We can have a visit. We can see, does this look like a possibility before we would actually get engaged in the paperwork that's involved. As far as a time frame goes, there is a little bit of paperwork on both ends, and so really a minimum of 2 weeks is what it would take to get somebody completely through and ready to go and start work. When a person is enrolled in the WIOA program, no matter what services they're getting, we stay connected with them until they are basically not in need of services anymore. That might be when they graduate high school, when they graduate college, when the job is going well. But we continue to do follow-up, and we continue to keep these individuals enrolled until they're basically productive members of the workforce. Okay, I guess that's what I had. There's much more I could talk about, but I do believe we had some flyers that were provided that should be available for everybody. And the way to connect is we have 9 offices around the state, and every office has WIOA services. Be happy to take any questions if there are any at this time.
Yeah, so if you have any questions on WIOA or any of the other programs that Jackie mentioned, just put those in the chat and then we'll get those at the end. Thank you, Jackie, so much for sharing information about your programs. And we don't have speakers on this webinar, but there are other programs that I just wanted to mention at a high level. The Department of Commerce has a couple programs, Operation Intern and the Technical Skills Training Grants, that in some cases can be used to help subsidize work-based learning or getting programs set up for that. We'll provide information on that in the follow-up that we send. And Minnesota actually also has some programs that are sometimes used for these programs, either grant programs, or there's a program called the Youth Skills Training Grant that a lot of schools will take advantage of to help spin up work-based learning programs, and that employers can partner with schools on. So we'll provide information about those programs again as part of the follow-up to this. Our next speaker is somebody that is always a popular one with employers, Art Thompson, who is with Workforce Safety and Insurance. A lot of times we will get asked questions or even receive pushback, especially about high school students. Well, we can't let 18-year-old or people under 18 on site because of insurance concerns. And so we've asked Art to join the call to really kind of help alleviate concerns, talk a little bit about what students can and can't do and how to handle insurance. Art Thompson is in Bismarck. He's the director of WSI. And Art, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Patrick, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me here today to answer a few questions. WSI certainly is supportive of career and technical education programs, and we don't want to be looked at as the barrier for students entering into partnerships with businesses to get that much needed field education. So, as you know, CTE programs help high school students prepare for college and careers. WSI in North Dakota is the sole provider of workers' compensation coverage for any participant gaining experience or paid employment. So there are really 2 factors that businesses need to look at when they are considering bringing a student on board. If you go to the next slide, we'll take a look at what those 2 factors are. So for vocational training work evaluation programs, WSI provides optional coverage for a CTE program to write a policy with our agency that will cover injuries to students who are doing unpaid job shadowing or on-the-job training that is part of their schooling. So they can, if it really comes down to, is the student getting paid for the work they're doing, or are they volunteering or getting just class credit? So again, any CTE group can contact our policyholder services office, and they would be able to walk you through how to create an account and have that coverage for your students. Now, for businesses that are looking at bringing a student on and paying them for their service, what the business has to do is just report that students' wages with their quarterly payroll reporting to WSI, and that student will automatically be covered by that business's policy with WSI. So 2 options there, really coming down to unpaid or paid partnerships. The one thing I do want to promote here is that we will write policies for students under or for people under the age of 18 for any business, as long as they are falling under the guidelines that the Federal Department of Labor has for students. Now, getting past some of those things with the Department of Labor, running power tools, being in elevated platforms and things like that that are typically outlawed for students under the age of 18 can be mitigated by having that student be enrolled in a certified CTE program under supervision and having an educational component to it. So I always tell businesses, don't just hire a bunch of high school kids and throw them on top of a roof and give them a bunch of air nailers and say that and have them work for 8 hours and tell them that this is their education. That's going to get you in trouble, right? There has to be an educational component to it. The time that they're working with those tools that the Department of Labor has restrictions on needs to be under supervision. And there's a lot of ways that businesses can provide opportunities while being compliant with Department of Labor rules, and then also working with our office to make sure they're compliant with North Dakota workers' compensation rules. And I believe Jane has put a one-page handout in the chat that I would encourage all of you to look at. That details what I've talked about when you need coverage, when you don't, how to obtain coverage. And then on the back of it, I'd like to just take a couple of moments on the next 2 slides and talk about the second focus that we have at WSI. You know, our primary purpose is to care for injured workers, and I like to say that the best way to do that is to provide programs and informations and tools that make it so that safety is at the forefront and that people don't get hurt on the job in the first place. So on our website, you will see that we do have a section on young worker safety. And I would encourage all of you to look at that section and put it into your classroom teaching with your students. You know, as we have teenagers start working, they're learning new skills, they find themselves in unfamiliar environments. Sometimes they're just excited to be there. They're maybe a little overzealous, but it's critical to provide them with the proper training and potential hazards to mitigate the risk of injuries. On the next slide, you know, just a couple of things that employers should be responsible for. Provide a workplace that's free from seriously recognized hazards and follow all OSHA safety and health standards. Find and correct safety and health hazards and be open to that. And, you know, for students coming in, they need to feel that they can step up and ask questions. The number one concern that we hear is from people that get injured say, well, I didn't feel comfortable, but I didn't want to ask. No, you have to, you know, trust your gut. If something feels unsafe, if you're unsure how a piece of machinery or a tool works, make sure that that student has a mentor that they can go to get that proper supervision, because at the end of the day, we want them to have a great experience in the workplace. And as they're young and coming into a workplace, it's much easier to teach them what are the proper personal protective equipments that need to be worn, looking for machine guarding, you know, all of the PPE that we want those habits to become ingrained when they are young, so they carry those habits with them all the way through the end of their career. To learn more, workforcesafety.com is our website. You can go to the safety link on our website and pull up the young worker safety tab to find more information. And again, that one pager, I believe, has a lot of our information on it. And hopefully that answers some of the questions that you have when it comes to WSI and what we require employers to do, what we require CTE programs to do. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And if not, I'll stick around and we can answer them at the end.
Yep. Thank you so much, Art. And yeah, if you have any questions for Art, put them in the chat and then we'll kind of hit those at the end of the presentation. And I just want to give a shout out to Art and all of the agency leaders in North Dakota. They are so encouraging of work-based learning programs and opportunities for students that they will answer questions. They're very timely and they want to figure out how to make this work, as long as, again, rules are being followed and safety of the student is paramount. So Art, thank you so much for your partnership. There are some different rules in Minnesota. So we will be talking about some of those rules in our third webinar when we go really deep into ag and construction experiences and how that works. Minnesota is a little bit more restrictive, and so we'll cover some of those deltas in that third webinar. The next presenters that we're going to have, I actually give them a lot of credit. They are on the front lines of workforce development, and that is Dr. Denise Jonas and Lana Feely with the Fargo Public Schools. Lana is with is a business liaison, and then Dr. Jonas actually represents Cass County CTE. And so they are basically the ones that are getting students ready for what's next. And they are working with students and teachers about work-based learning opportunities, helping students get connected to employers, and kind of managing the process. So Lana, I'm going to turn it over to you, and Lana's going to talk a little bit about what you as an employer should do to make sure you have a successful program, and also what to expect from students and from the schools in terms of timing. So Lana, I'll hand it over to you.
Well, thank you. And thanks everyone for hanging in there. I know this can get long, so they stuck me at the end. I'm just going to go over kind of some of the things that we really think will be helpful if the businesses are prepared for when we send our students. So I'm going to go through the list. But number one, we really want to have a memorandum of understanding or intent to participate with you. And that's just an electronic form that we'll send to you. It's just an agreement between the business and Fargo Public or West Fargo, because I really work for Cass County now, that just kind of says what's expected of you, what you'll do, and what we'll do. Then we really need to have a job ready. It's great to have an idea floating out there, like what we want to do, but it works much better if it's a concrete job that's ready that the student can jump into so that we can move through the timeline a little faster, which I'm going to talk about on the second slide. Then the third thing I have on here is we will come out once we kind of have that done and we have a student that's ready to go, we're going to come out and check your site. We're going to see where that student's working, make sure that there's safety, which WSI just talked about. We want to make sure our students are in an environment where they're safe. They've got a mentor that's secured, and we meet with that mentor. We see who the mentor is. The site is safe. We need to go know where our students are going and where they're going to be and who they're working with. Then we are going to actually meet with that mentor and go through some of our requirements. So you can see that this gets a little bit intense here, but we really have some requirements we have to move through. We want to make sure that that mentor understands how that student's going to be graded. We are going to go through those career ready practices and how our students set goals and how we're going to help those students achieve goals through this experience. We want the student to grow under that mentorship, and we want the business to hopefully start developing their workforce as well. So it's twofold. Then we really want that feedback coming back regularly because we have timelines at the school. So we need timely feedback on that student for us to grade. And that we are more, one other reason is we want to see progress toward the goals that the students have set. Then we have a teacher of record that comes in. So I'm going to step out and that teacher of record is going to kind of step in. We always have a teacher that is in the content area if possible or has taken the steps to get the work-based learning credentials on their licensure. So that teacher of record is going to be the one that now becomes the liaison between the student, the school, and the business partners. And that teacher of record is going to come out twice and check on the student with the mentor present. So we can just see how things are going. Are there issues? We want to step in before a student is dismissed. We want to make sure that we are problem solving if there's any issues. We also want to hear if things are going well so we can benefit the student on our end and boost them and encourage them. Then we are going to assist that student in the reflection of those goals toward the end of the experience. Dawn mentioned earlier that we need 75 hours. So when we're getting toward the end, we want to make sure, are we meeting those goals? How is that student going to be able to reflect on the experience at the end? One of the things that we really have been talking about is that time is of the essence. Our schools run on calendars and we have deadlines. So some of the things we've experienced in the past few years is this: if the job isn't ready and things aren't in place, sometimes we've had trouble getting the students set up for the experience and getting the hours successfully completed before the end of this semester. So Patrick, if you want to go to the next slide, I'll just talk a little bit about some of those deadlines in our schools. We run on semesters, which I think most of you could probably understand. We start in August. That first semester would end in January. Now, every school is going to vary. Every district is going to vary a little bit. Typically, that second semester will start in January and end in May or June, depending on when the end date is. But registration, and this is really tricky, registration for 2026 happened back in February. So kids are already registered for fall and spring for next school year. It happens so early, and that's just a timeline that we have happening that I think businesses might not recognize. So that's something to consider. If you want to have something ready for the next year, it had to be ready back in January almost for students to possibly register. That doesn't mean all is lost. We have other timelines we can work with. We can make our schedule changes in early August and for fall and spring, and then we have some schedule change availability in January for the spring. But that kind of tells you how early things need to be in place and things need to be set up way ahead. We also have some summer school opportunities, and that ends usually in May, our registration in May. So there are opportunities in the summer. But if a student wants to get involved and something's not available and we're pushing it out until October, we're running out of time. So we have to get things done a little bit earlier. We also have to consider some of our grading and eligibility checks. Our students become eligible for sports or extracurriculars, and we have to check maybe every 3 weeks or maybe weekly, depending on the school district. So we need those grades in, the feedback forms done and back to our teachers pretty timely, depending on those checks. And then we have to report our grades quarterly, which oftentimes is October, January, March, and then again in May or June. So that's kind of our timeline discussion on what we would need kind of required and how the timeliness matters. Denise, did I miss anything that you want to add?
Fabulous, fabulous job. Thank you, Lana. I think the one thing, and kind of back to Art's comment too about having a student set up for success and connected to career and technical education, the students having that one credit. And then some of our students in the hazardous areas, we do OSHA 10. And so having that card available too is an affirmation of some of the safety training we do within the curriculum. And so knowing that that student does have a full year or a credit under their belt before that they're eligible for cooperative work experience does provide some assurance that they do have some background knowledge, but we're really working to have them apply it on the job. And then when Lana referenced the career ready practices, just to let you know, those are really around those professional skills, again, communication, teamwork, problem solving, technical skills, and what does a responsible employee look like? So I think those are just a few additional details.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Lana and Dr. Jonas, for sharing those. And one thing that hopefully those of you that are attending this are getting a sense of is there is a lot of resources available to you to help get this going. You know, you don't need to remember all the details from this presentation, but if you have a desire to get connected, if you want to start putting a program in place, reach out to us, reach out to the chamber, reach out to Lana or Dr. Jonas. Basically, we'll figure out how to make it work, and we'll also help you understand the timelines. And the benefit also of having a systematic approach to this is we can connect you to the similar people in Kindred or Northern Cass or Grand Forks or Bismarck or whatever it might be. So don't let lack of knowledge be a barrier. We'll figure it out with you. We want you all to give great opportunities to students to help them understand what's next. But we also want to help you with workforce development, which is ultimately what's in it for you all as employers. I want to do a quick plug for the next 2 sessions, and I'm going to turn it back to Jane, who can wrap up the session. Next Friday, this Friday, we will be talking about how work-based learning is part of a workforce development strategy. So how do you take all this information and actually turn it into a way to develop more brand awareness of what you do, of your careers, and how do you develop workforce, including partnering with Becky and post-secondary and getting people into the workforce. And then next week, next Thursday, we will be talking about work-based learning specifically for ag and construction. Those are some industries where we know there's a shortage. There's a lot changing in ag. So we want to make sure that work-based learning opportunities are happening there, but also that you understand any requirements, insurance requirements, whatever it might be. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jane. Jane can help us kind of close up the session, and we'll also answer any questions that might have come up. So Jane, I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, at this point, we would invite any of our webinar participants, if you have any questions, either to go ahead and unmute yourselves and ask those questions, or feel free to type them in the chat and I can be that liaison. But as those questions are coming in, I also would encourage you to share your feedback with us on the session today, recognizing that there was some technical difficulties for some of you getting into the session, and very much appreciate your patience. You can scan that QR code, as you can see right there on the screen, and it will take you directly to our feedback, and we would ask that you complete that. In addition, as Patrick mentioned, we do have part 2 and part 3 coming up of our work-based learning webinar series. I did put those links in the chat for you to get registered, and would definitely encourage you to do so. I think one of the main things that we continually have heard as we've done our listening sessions through the Farms Initiative throughout the state over this past 6 months is that we continually hear, how do we engage our emerging workforce? And as Patrick and others have mentioned today, that there's a multitude of resources within North Dakota. Know and understand that you can feel free to reach out to me, my colleagues, or Patrick, even if you are not Fargo based or the region based here in Fargo. We really want to encourage this throughout our state. Mr. Thompson provided some really great information on how does this look across our state, along with Don and others. And so this is truly trying to increase our entire region, which in North Dakota includes our entire state. So definitely appreciate that, and appreciate the support that's been provided for this and the insight, and want to again recognize our presenters, that this is a huge brain trust here today with us, and all of their time and efforts, and their continually work to ensure that our emerging workforce has these experiences. So very much appreciate that. I think at this point, we just have a few minutes left. Would open it up also to any of our presenters. If there's anything else that you wish you would have said, or any other resources that you wish you would have shared. Again, the resources have been put in the chat, those links, but at this point, I'll open up to the speakers as well. We don't have any formal questions from the audience, so any speakers that would like to share anything.
I'll jump in here, Jane, and I would just like to say thank you to all of you who are working in this realm. I have 2 students, two kids. My daughter is a junior. My son is a sophomore here in Bismarck. My daughter is very driven, and she has her next 30 years of her life mapped out. My son is taking CTE classes up at the Career Academy here in Bismarck, and really, really enjoying it, and finding out what he may want to do later in life, and definitely what he does not want to do in life, which I think are, tremendous experiences that our young people are getting that, people my age didn't necessarily have that, right? I mean, the exposure you're creating, the opportunities you're creating, the partnerships, it's a tremendous program, and I just we at WSI, we're happy to answer any questions. And like I said, we don't want to be the barrier. So if you have businesses that are not wanting to join just because of that, have them reach out and talk to their policy advisor, and we will set them straight. So thank you all for your efforts.
Yeah, thank you so much, Art. And a couple of comments just real quick before we wrap up. We started our work here in the Fargo-Moorhead, West Fargo region. That's expanded to North Dakota, and now it's just been awesome to talk to more people on the Minnesota side. We know that there are things happening in South Dakota, in Montana, and then Dawn, with your work at the national level, with the ACT Work-Based Learning Division. There is so much energy going on right now around how do we do this, because workforce is a huge issue. So I also think we're kind of on the cutting edge of a lot of innovation that's going to happen in this space. And so any feedback that any of the presenters have, or any of the employers have, best practices, success stories that you want to share, please get those to us. We want to be a megaphone for the successes that you've had. And I know Dawn and probably Mary are always looking for people that are willing to speak to legislators about adding more resources to these programs and giving more resources to the schools that ultimately are generating our future workforce, which is so very important. And sometimes I think it's overlooked. So thank you everybody for presenting. And Jane, I'll hand it back to you if you want to close it down. If there are no more questions.
Sure. Well, thank you, everyone. And again, all of those resources have been placed in the chat and you will have access to them after the fact. Noting that most of those are entire statewide. And in Becky's case, which she shared about Handshake, that's actually nationwide. And so there's a lot of really great resources. So again, thank you for attending. The recording will be sent out. We asked for your feedback. I did place that again in the chat for you to provide all of us feedback. And thank you so much. And have a great Wednesday. Thanks, everyone.